Today, we delve into the chilling story of the youngest woman on death row in the United States since capital punishment was reinstated. At the time of the crime, she was only 18 years old. The jury painted a picture of a young woman full of contradictions, a face like an angel, but a heart filled with evil. She was capable of casually collecting fragments of a human skull as if they were trophies, proudly showing them off, entirely indifferent to the value of human life. Even behind bars, she showed no signs of remorse. In fact, she continued to commit more crimes from inside her cell. Some called her the embodiment of evil, a wicked soul from birth. Yet others argued that no one is born a monster, that it was the tragedies of her life that pushed her down the path of darkness. So, what lies behind this horrifying case? And you are watching the Mystery Cases channel, where we together explore the most mysterious cases, the most thrilling stories. And as usual, before we unravel the mysteries in today's case, please leave a like and a subscribe to support us. Now, let's dive into today's case. At around 7 a.m. on January 13, 1995, a janitor named Alan began his routine work of collecting trash across the campus of the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, located in eastern Tennessee. Due to the large campus area, each worker was assigned a specific section. That morning, Alan was tasked with cleaning up around Tyson Park, a small wooded area near the school that included an old, long-abandoned steam plant. Feeling lucky that he had been assigned a secluded area with few people, meaning less work, Alan strolled into the woods, completely unaware that he was about to stumble upon a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. As he walked past the abandoned plant, Alan noticed faint, dark red stains smeared on the ground. They formed a faint trail leading into a patch of tall grass. A strange unease crept over him, but his curiosity urged him forward. Taking a deep breath, he gently parted the grass, and in that instant, his heart nearly stopped. There, right in front of him, was a body. At first, Alan thought it was the remains of an animal that had been torn apart, but upon closer inspection, he was horrified to realize it was a human being. The victim had no shirt on. Her skin was covered in deep, deliberate cuts, as if slashed repeatedly with a razor or box cutter. In the center of her chest, a 5-pointed star had been carved deeply into her flesh. The blood had dried into dark, crusty streaks, making the wounds appear even more grotesque. But the most horrifying part was the victim's head. It had been so brutally battered that it was nearly unrecognizable. Frozen in terror, Alan's legs nearly gave out. Overwhelmed with panic, he bolted out of the woods and, hands trembling, dialed the police. Less than an hour later, officers from the Knoxville Police Department and the university's security team arrived at the scene. Though many of them were seasoned investigators who had witnessed countless crime scenes, this one left even the most experienced detectives speechless. A preliminary examination revealed that the victim had been attacked with extraordinary brutality. The cuts on her body appeared to have been made with a sharp object, possibly a razor or a box cutter. As for her head, it had been repeatedly bludgeoned with a heavy rock until it was completely disfigured. The sheer level of violence made it hard to imagine the agony she must have endured before her death. Due to the extreme damage to the skull, the investigators were unable to identify the victim at the scene. They could only confirm that the deceased was a young woman. Given that the crime had occurred near the university campus, authorities feared the news would spark panic among students. To avoid this, they quickly restricted information about the case and tightened security around the area. The urgency to identify the victim became top priority. Since the university grounds were typically closed to the public, the chances were high that the victim was a student. Investigators began checking with university faculty and staff to see if anyone had recently gone missing. During the inquiry, a staff member responsible for managing the dormitory's entry logs provided a crucial lead. He reported that among the students enrolled in the school's vocational training program, a girl named Colleen Slemmer, aged 19, had left the dormitory the previous evening and hadn't returned since. Colleen Slemmer was born on September 20th, 1975. She lived in Orange Park, Florida, with her mother, stepfather, and younger sister. In September 1994, unable to afford traditional college tuition, Colleen enrolled in the U.S. Department of Labor's Job Corps program, a federal initiative offering free education and job training to young people aged 16 to 24. Some campuses even provided room and board, giving students like Colleen an opportunity to study subjects such as computer technology, which she was passionate about. Notably, the Job Corps program in Knoxville, where Colleen was enrolled, was shut down just a few months after the murder. Upon receiving this information, investigators quickly reviewed dormitory records from the evening of January 12th. They found something unusual. According to the logs, Colleen had left the dorm at 8 p.m. along with 3 other students, Christa, Tatterall, and Shadala. While the other 3 returned by 10:15 p.m., Colleen never came back. A young woman like Colleen wandering off alone at night raised immediate red flags. Detectives decided to bring in the 3 friends who had accompanied her that night for questioning. However, before they could get to them, another important clue surfaced. A campus security officer handed over a denim jacket left behind by Christa, one of the 3 students who had gone out with Colleen, out of concern that it might be related to the ongoing investigation. The officer searched the jacket pocket. What they discovered shocked everyone. Wrapped in a piece of tissue paper was a small fragment of bone, still stained with what appeared to be fresh blood. Forensic experts present at the scene immediately grew suspicious. Based on their experience, the bone fragment looked disturbingly similar to a piece of a human skull. Still, further analysis at the forensics lab was required for confirmation. At the same time, another student from the Job Corps program came forward with a startling report. Earlier that day in class, Christa had pointed at the dark stains on her shoes and laughed, saying, "This isn't mud, it's blood." She went on to boast in graphic detail about how she had slit someone's throat and smashed their skull with a rock. Detectives were horrified. The brutality matched the condition of the victim found in the woods. And a terrifying question arose. Had this young woman really just murdered someone and then bragged about it the next day without an ounce of fear or remorse? Fueled by suspicion, investigators brought in the 3 students who had last been seen with Colleen: Christa Pike, Tatterall Shipp, and Shadala Peterson. It didn't take long before Shadala started talking. She revealed that Christa had planned to teach Colleen a lesson because she believed Colleen was trying to steal her boyfriend, Tatterall. Christa and Tatterall had met through the Job Corps program in 1994 and quickly bonded over a disturbing shared interest: Satanism. This dark ideology rejected God and glorified cruelty, violence, and ritualistic offerings, sometimes involving human sacrifice. What seemed horrifying and grotesque to others was thrilling and powerful to them. Their spiritual connection soon turned into a romantic relationship. But things took a turn when Christa went home for a break, leaving Tatterall alone at the dorms. Struggling with loneliness, he began flirting with Colleen. He assumed no one would find out, but he was wrong. Christa's intuition was sharp, and as soon as she returned, she sensed something was off. The way Colleen and Tatterall interacted made it obvious. Despite both Tatterall and Colleen denying any involvement, and despite Colleen's friends standing up for her, Christa refused to believe them. Her jealousy quickly escalated into obsession. She started to threaten and harass Colleen, making her daily life miserable. Colleen even called her mother in distress, saying she wanted to leave the program, but her mother insisted she finish it first. Eventually, Christa's rage could no longer be contained. She didn't just want to scare Colleen. She wanted to make her suffer. So Christa approached Shadala, her close friend, and the 2 devised a plan. Christa also roped in Tatterall, using their shared belief in Satanism to manipulate him. She told him, "The universe is out of balance. If we don't offer a sacrifice, everything will fall apart. We won't survive without giving up a soul." and their chosen sacrifice was Colleen Slemmer. On the night of January 12, 1995, Christa approached Colleen with a false olive branch. She apologized for the past and said she wanted to put everything behind them. She invited Colleen on a short trip to go shopping and smoke some weed to celebrate their reconciliation. Christa even suggested stopping by Tyson Park, a familiar hangout spot. Relieved and hopeful for a truce, Colleen agreed. The four of them, Christa, Tadaryl, Shadala, and Colleen, left the dorm together at 8 p.m. What Colleen didn't know was that Christa had hidden 2 weapons in her clothing, a box cutter and a meat cleaver. She had no intention of making peace. Once they reached the wooded area deep inside the park, far from public view, Christa suddenly dropped the friendly act. Her face hardened, and she turned on Colleen with a chilling stare. "Why are you trying to steal my boyfriend?" she hissed. Colleen was completely taken aback. Confused and frightened, she quickly denied the accusation, insisting there was nothing between her and Tadaryl. But Christa wasn't listening. Rage overtook her. She grabbed Colleen by the hair, slammed her to the ground, and began to kick and beat her mercilessly. Colleen cried out in pain, begging for it to stop. "Why are you doing this to me? I'm going to report this to the school," she sobbed. But Christa only laughed. Her kicks became harder, her words more violent. As Colleen tried to crawl away, Tadaryl grabbed her and pinned her down while Shadala kept watch to ensure no one saw what was happening. Then Christa pulled out the box cutter. She slashed Colleen's throat and stabbed her repeatedly, blood soaking through her clothes. But even then, she didn't stop. Her eyes lit up with excitement as she kept cutting and slicing, ignoring Colleen's pleas for mercy. Colleen, in her final moments of desperation, tried to run. She stumbled through the darkness, blood pouring from her neck, heading toward the edge of the park, but she didn't make it far. Christa picked up a large rock and hurled it at Colleen's head, striking her from behind. Colleen collapsed to the ground, too weak to fight back. She could only lie there, silently praying to survive. But Christa wasn't finished. She called Tadaryl over and handed him the meat cleaver. For the next 30 minutes, the two of them took turns torturing Colleen, slashing her body over and over again. When they finally grew bored, Christa carved a pentagram into Colleen's chest and picked up the same rock, this time smashing it repeatedly into Colleen's skull until her face was unrecognizable. According to Satanic belief, if a person dies with their body mutilated, their soul can never move on. It will remain trapped forever in the earthly realm. Believing this, Christa picked out a piece of Colleen's skull she liked best and carefully tucked it into her jacket pocket to keep as a trophy. After the brutal murder was complete, the 3 perpetrators dragged Colleen's lifeless body into a nearby patch of bushes. Before leaving, they rummaged through her belongings, taking her student ID card and a pair of black gloves, which they later stashed at a gas station nearby. At exactly 10:15 p.m., all 3 returned to the dormitory, as if nothing had happened. Calm, collected, and eerily normal, they carried on with their evening routine. No panic, no remorse, no sign of guilt. It wasn't until the following day, when police came knocking, that their dark secret began to unravel. In the interrogation room, Christa Pike sat quietly, gently fingering the pentagram-shaped necklace around her neck, a symbol of her twisted beliefs. Her demeanor was shockingly calm, almost proud. Without hesitation, she began to confess. She walked the detectives through every detail of the crime, reliving the events with unnerving clarity. Her confession was so thorough that it filled 46 pages of police records. The officers listening to her account were chilled to the bone. How could someone so young, just 18 years old, be capable of such vicious, calculated cruelty? And yet, her testimony made the case airtight. Forensic analysts confirmed that the skull fragment found in her jacket matched Colleen's remains. In Christa's dorm room, police also discovered a Satanic Bible and a pair of blood-stained jeans. DNA testing later confirmed that the blood belonged to Colleen. With this overwhelming evidence, Christa Pike was officially arrested for first-degree murder. Shortly afterward, Darrell Shipp and Shadala Peterson were also taken into custody. On March 22, 1996, the trial began. From the very start, the prosecution was clear in its stance. Christa's actions were not only barbaric, but cowardly and monstrous. They laid out a timeline of events and presented the damning evidence, her confession, the physical proof, the testimonies. It didn't take long for the jury to reach a verdict. Christa Gail Pike was found guilty and sentenced to death by electrocution, the method still used in Tennessee at the time. This ruling made her the youngest woman on death row in the United States since the country reinstated capital punishment in 1976. The moment her sentence was announced, Christa broke down in tears, appearing remorseful and terrified. But no one in the courtroom felt sorry for her. A cold-blooded killer like her, they believed, deserved no sympathy. 3 months later, her co-defendants were tried as well. Darrell Shipp, who was 17 at the time of the crime, received a life sentence with the possibility of parole in 2028. Shadala Peterson, having played only a supporting role and having cooperated with investigators, was sentenced to 460 days in jail and 6 years probation. After the trial, Christa was transferred to Tennessee's highest security prison for women, where she would await execution. But even behind bars, she showed no signs of remorse or reform. Not long after her incarceration, she wrote a letter to her boyfriend, Darrell Shipp, who was also serving his life sentence. The letter, however, was intercepted by prison staff and handed over to prosecutors. What it revealed was deeply disturbing. In it, Christa expressed no guilt over what she had done. In fact, she went as far as to claim that the police should be grateful to her for not making Colleen suffer even more. Her words were chillingly casual, as if the murder was something to brag about. On June 6, 1996, Christa received an additional 25-year sentence, this time for attempting to solicit the murder of another inmate. Though this sentence had little effect on someone already facing the death penalty, it only solidified her reputation as dangerous and completely unrepentant. But the story didn't end there. In 1997, a man named Eric Farrell began exchanging letters with Christa. Eric was fascinated by notorious criminals and planned to sell murderabilia, items connected to infamous killers. Christa, who enjoyed the attention, was more than willing to cooperate. Soon, Eric's website featured signed photos, letters, locks of Christa's hair, and even her underwear, all sold to morbid collectors. A single signed photo and a personal letter could go for $135. Eric even announced that he planned to marry Christa someday. His belief was simple. Once she was executed, all items associated with her would skyrocket in value, and he would own them all. But his plan didn't go as expected. While Christa remained alive, Eric was diagnosed with cancer, and his website was permanently shut down. It seemed the tables had turned. In 1999, a documentary featured footage of Christa speaking from prison. She said, "I'm 22 now. I still have a lot I want to do. But I'm locked in a room 23 hours a day. I should be out there going to school, working, hanging out with friends. I miss my stuffed animal SD. He's the only thing they let me keep because they're afraid I might hide something dangerous inside anything else." But if anyone thought Christa had changed, they were sorely mistaken. On August 24, 2001, a violent incident inside the prison proved otherwise. During a fight between two inmates, Natasha Cornett and Patricia Jones, Christa intervened, wrapped a shoelace around Patricia's neck, and tried to strangle her to death. Luckily, guards arrived just in time. When questioned about the attack, Christa casually replied, "I was just helping Natasha. But even if Patricia had died, I wouldn't have lost sleep over it. I don't care." Just days later, during a phone call with her mother, Christa said, "I bet if I had 30 more seconds, that girl would be gone from this world." It was clear. Christa regretted nothing. She was placed in solitary confinement, confined to a 10.5 square meter cell, allowed outside for just 1 hour a day. Freedom had become nothing more than a fantasy. As a result of the attack on Patricia Jones, Christa was charged with attempted first-degree murder, adding yet another conviction to her record. But once again, it didn't change her fate. Over the years, Christa's legal team filed multiple appeals in an effort to overturn her death sentence. One of their arguments was rather unusual. They claimed that a life sentence would allow Christa to better reflect on her mistakes than execution would. But strangely enough, Christa herself rejected the appeal, saying she wanted to be executed immediately. She told the judge, "No one's going to take me to Disney World, so what's the point of living?" This bizarre request shocked the court. While the judge denied her plea for immediate execution, a date was eventually set for August 19, 2002. As the date approached, Christa even thanked the authorities for setting her free from a life in prison. But just over a month before her scheduled execution, she changed her mind again, filing yet another appeal. As expected, it was denied. However, in a surprise move, the Tennessee Court of Appeals accepted the appeal just 2 weeks before the execution, postponing her death indefinitely. In 2008, Christa requested a new trial. During the hearing, as the audio of her original 1995 confession played back in the courtroom, she began to cry. But her tears could no longer undo the damage she had done. Her request for a new trial was denied once again. In 2012, Christa took things further. She somehow convinced a 34-year-old man named Donald Kohut, who had been corresponding with her for over a year, to help her escape from prison. Donald bribed a 23-year-old correctional officer, Justin Heflin, to make a spare key that could unlock Christa's cell. But before the plan could be carried out, someone reported the plot to the authorities. Donald was arrested and sentenced to 7 years in prison. Justin cooperated with investigators and avoided jail time, but was fired from the prison system. Since there was no evidence directly linking Christa to the escape plan, she faced no additional punishment. Later, she filed a complaint to the state's Human Rights Commission, claiming she had suffered from undiagnosed mental illness, which led to an unfair trial. The commission ordered a mental health evaluation. To the surprise of many, the diagnosis confirmed that Christa did suffer from serious psychiatric disorders, most likely rooted in her traumatic past. Christa Gail Pike was born on March 10, 1976, in Beckley, West Virginia. Her father was abusive and absent, abandoning her and her mother just 3 years after she was born. Her mother, Carissa, was an alcoholic who continued drinking even during pregnancy. As a result, Christa was born with a severely underdeveloped frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for judgment and impulse control. She suffered from epilepsy and later developed bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Her home life was a nightmare. Her mother frequently physically abused her, placed her in dangerous situations, and ignored her cries for help. Christa was also sexually assaulted by a neighbor at age 15, but her mother refused to believe her and withdrew the charges. At age 16, after another traumatic assault, Christa begged for help, but was dismissed once again. Her mother eventually sent her away to the Job Corps program in Knoxville, effectively cutting ties. Years of abandonment, abuse, and mental illness led Christa down a dark, irreversible path. Despite the findings of the mental health evaluation, the court refused to grant her a retrial. In August 2020, Tennessee filed a petition with the U.S. Supreme Court to set an execution date, but COVID-19 delayed the process. Christa continued to file appeals, referencing other youth-related cases in hopes of gaining leniency. But the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that since she was already 18 at the time of the crime, she was legally considered an adult, and thus did not qualify for special consideration. As of now, Christa Gail Pike remains the only woman on death row in Tennessee. If her execution is carried out, she will become the first woman executed in the state in over 200 years. Meanwhile, she launched a personal website pleading for forgiveness. She claimed she deeply regretted her actions and wished she could go back in time to undo the tragedy. She insisted that she is no longer the same person she was at 18. Public opinion remains deeply divided. Some believe that Christa's traumatic upbringing and mental health issues were not properly considered during her trial. They argue that she deserves a second chance. But others, especially the family of Colleen Slemmer, strongly disagree. One family member said, "I have to fight for Colleen. I'm her voice now. I want to see the person who killed her pay for what she did, not live in prison, getting food, health care, and education on our tax dollars." Sadly, for Colleen's family, that justice may never come. The governor of Tennessee has indefinitely suspended all executions. Unless that changes, Christa Pike may spend the rest of her life behind bars, never facing the punishment many believe she deserves. To this day, a fragment of Colleen's skull, used as evidence in the trial, is still kept in the court's archives. Her mother has repeatedly requested its return, but the court has denied every plea. Unable to find closure, she built a memorial for her daughter in her backyard, a place to remember the life that was stolen too soon. That concludes today's case. If you found this story shocking or thought-provoking, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another case on Mystery Case.